Hello, everyone, and welcome back to session 3 with our Georgia Department of Education community for music technology. This time we have had guest David Thomas with us, and he has been helping us understand better how to incorporate hip hop producing and hip hop history into our music technology classes. I think our classes really lay well for this music technology combination with hip hop because hip hop has generated largely from the things that we're teaching, not so much from the band tradition or the orchestra tradition, but from the tools that we're using. They're the same as the tools they've been using all these years and are so readily accessible now through the DAWs. The no matter where you're doing drum breaks or 808s, whatever, you can build it and have fun with it in a DAW. So with in session 2, we walked through the first 3 weeks of David's unit that he does with hip hop. So he's going to pick it up and keep going now with where he goes after he does the breakbeat battles and the peer assessments. So take it away, David.
Okay, so we've done the history and technology, the authentic sounds, and the breakbeat battle. And then the next week, week 4, we go into sampling. So I found this incredible video on YouTube, and it's a project, I guess, that's ongoing that they do this with different artists called The Crate, hashtag The Crate. Um, so, Henny the Business was the person that I chose to use this because, again, some of these um, crate videos can be a little bit maybe dicey for use in school, but Henny the Business, his particular video kept it very on the up and up, nothing questionable. It would be safe for middle school and high school viewing. So you have to watch out for that. But this particular one was great. I highly recommend it. So this is talking about flipping the script, as Cruz mentioned from our basis, from our um, review of literature, using existing material in new ways. And obviously, you can do this a number of different ways. The way that I asked my students to do it was with the frame of the crate. So the basis for the crate was whoever's in charge of the crate sends these different artists a box or a crate of just random things inside. Henny the Business, his was a toaster oven, stuff like that, stuff in a toaster oven. And he's recording with he used an iPad to record the things that were in the crate and then created a beat with those particular items and the sounds that he has recorded. So that's our launching point for this sampling project. I do have a caveat though, because we all know that sampling as we know it, and as a lot of the kids will understand it, is using another artist's source material as sampling, a little piece of this or a little, riff of this particular artist. Back Going back to Good Times, that was they were basically sampling then in a different way before sampling was known as we know it now. But anyway, I do allow them to use that like a 10 or a 15-second clip if they have something that they feel really strongly about, to use that as a background. We have to talk about tempo then. We have to talk about beat matching. If they're bringing that particular 10 or 15-second sample into their DAW, we got to talk about beat matching, finding the tempo. So again, I'm sneaking in these traditional music theory type things into under the background and of hip hop. And they're like all about it because they're like, how fast is this? Well, I have to teach them then how to figure out what that tempo is. So there's all kind of different tools you can use for that online, free online things.
Does that ever
Beat,
bring up
beat,
in your class any discussions about copyright with the students? Do they ever get passionate about, like, hey, if I wrote that, I wouldn't want someone stealing it?
yeah, and we actually have. I have a little kind of a mini side lesson that I do on that, talking about sampling. And then I put on the document that I give them with this particular assignment, I have several different internet articles that I've come up with that relate to exactly this issue, copyright and sampling and things like that. We also talk about that when we go back to Good Times and Rappers Delight. There was a big to do then as well. So we use that as our background and the basis of that. I give them some different things to look at and say, then I say, okay, now you know what you want to use, and you have to decide is this in legal territory or not,
Poor
So
guy that did the Amen break. I mean, he never hardly made any money off that song, and it's the most used sample in the world now. But
right.
crazy.
So we do talk about that a little bit, and they have very strong opinion about that. That if I made this, I'd want to be paid for it, or at least give an acknowledgement of
Hmm.
that was my material. And I tell them, look, I'm a professional musician. I want to get paid. If you use my stuff, I want some money for it. So, and they're all like, they agree with that. They're like, yeah, that's a valid point. So it's an interesting discussion, and it really helps them dig into a little bit more of sampling in the world of how that happens and royalties and things like that, permissions from different artists and stuff like that. So they create this sample project by just basically banging on whatever or making whatever noise they want to and create a beat with that. They can use loops also. They can use the samples that they use using their phone or a microphone if they're a little more sophisticated. I have them come up with a normal drum track. Kenny the Business talks about a normal drum track, and he did that. But basically, they do a project using those samples for 90 seconds and a 90-second minimum. What can you do with your own samples or one sample from another music track that's 15 seconds or less if you felt very strongly about a piece of a clip that you wanted to use from another artist. So, but they have a lot of fun with that as well. It does tend to be a little more challenging because they have to actually get sound into their DAW. So if you haven't covered that yet, you have to take some time to do that and show them how to do that. So that can be a little bit time consuming. But they do enjoy that project. It's kind of fun, and they put in little sound effects and stuff like that. But it's a fun project, and the inspiration when they after they've seen the video of Kenny the Business doing this with the random stuff with the toaster and different things that he had in his crate, they get pretty excited about that. Like, wow, this guy did all this really cool beat with this. I want to try that too. So it's a good example for them to look at.
For sure. I mean, sampling is huge now, and so many DAWs make it so easy to do, from FL Studio to Logic
Yeah.
or whatever. Soundtrap, not so much on the sampling thing as far as diversifying the pitches and everything, but of course you can load a sample into Logic and or Soundtrap and chart that exact audio along the beat path as it needs to be. So that's kind of fun for sure. So that's a project in and of itself. You're taking about a week on that idea, and then where does that lead for your kids?
So that was the fourth week. That takes us to the kind of the really, it's almost like a summative assessment, to be honest with you. At that point, I have them uh, create another beat, or they could use a beat that they've already created within the unit if they feel so strongly about that they feel like they really had a good one. And then they write their own rap. So they actually will compose the lyrics. I have them write out the lyrics. For my freestyle people, there you do have some. I have some kids that are great at freestyling. It amazes me when they start just freestyling. But some of them love to do that as well. So I said, if you guys want to do a freestyle, that's fine as well. Just when you're finished with the freestyling, you're going to put those lyrics down so I can see them, and that's going to be your lyric composition aspect of this. But they do that. I give them 2 weeks to do this. The first week, the first time I did this with students, I had them write the lyrics first and then come up with a beat. So after watching some of them really struggle with that, it dawned on me that not all people create that way. So now I give them a full 2 weeks. I say, okay, instead of doing a week 5 with lyrics and week 6 with the rap practice, put it all together, I do a 2 week, 5 and 6s together in one assignment where they can either create the beat first or create the lyrics first. And I explain to them there's not a right or wrong with that. It's however you create, however your creative juices begin to flow. For the freestyle person, they may have to have a beat first. They've got to have that beat and then they freestyle on top of it. For other kids, they have to write out lyrics and then they'll say, okay, I want this kind of a style, and then they come up with their beat after they write their lyrics. Neither one is wrong. They're both just different ways of creating rap. So they really get into that. And it does. That is not an easy task, really. When you look at the big picture, that's a big deal to have 2 weeks to come up with that type of a thing. So I try to get them to keep it simple. You know, we're not creating the next top 10 rap hit here. We're just experimenting. We're playing around with it, trying to get our feet wet in doing this. And so they are okay when I explain to them we're not trying to make a finished polished project. You can't do that in 2 weeks. That's a
Do you
lot to 2 weeks lyric composition and a beat.
do you ever have students that resist the lyric writing altogether, like they just can't get themselves to have the confidence to record themselves rapping and stuff? Any advice to us for how to help kids break through that confidence barrier?
Yeah, they do. There's a percentage, it's a small percentage that are very resistant to that. And I give them permission to not do that. Or do you have somebody that does like to do that, that could do that for you? You create the beat, you write the lyrics, and then they rap your lyrics on top of that if that's not your thing. And I totally get that. I don't try to force kids to do something they're uncomfortable doing, but still, do something with it. Find somebody that you can collaborate with, even people within the classroom that are very into that might record your lyric for you on top of your beat. So that's how I approach that. And
Cool.
then if there's some that just they can't, they don't do it. I give them a pass on that and say, give me your beat, give me your lyric. Maybe if you want to say your lyric and maybe the rhythm, you would probably say it for my ears only. Nobody else is going to hear it. We're not playing these for the class, and they'll kind of go along with that. So yeah, you definitely have different levels of resistance in embracing this assignment, because this is really, you are putting yourself out there on this assignment in a big way, and there are some kids that are just really not quite ready for that.
Yeah, I know there are some cultures at my school that would resist that rap presentation, but
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how you help. I love the collaboration idea. Getting they all know somebody that's ready to hop on a track. Now,
absolutely.
curious, you talked about form earlier and how you were laying form on top of this in one of the previous sessions. Do you have the students make a hook and a verse here, or just a
Yeah, I
verse?
I ask them for a hook and a verse, and we talk about hooks, and they're all immediately able to come up with a song they know that's a hook, and I'm like, this is a hook. You can't get it out of your mind. You keep repeating it over and over again. It gets repeated over and over again in the rap and the song and it could be a ballad even, totally unrelated to hip hop, but there's hooks and those little phrases or words that you just can't get out of your mind. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, we talk about uh, hooks in a verse, and I ask them to do at least one of each. And I ask them if they can't, if they're not really thinking more of a freestyle way, or they need some help putting this together. And we talk about form, and I say, okay, why don't we do this? Do hook, verse, hook, then you're out. Add an intro, add an outro, you're done. You know, and just give me eight lines, 4 lines, 8 lines, and they're like, okay, I can do that. They can wrap their head around that because it's not this big. I'm not asking for 3 verses and a bridge and all the hooks in between and everything like that. So yeah,
Man, I absolutely love. I think a lot of us, and I'm gonna throw me in this. I want to skip straight to week 5, and get in there with my kids and do that. But I love how you've broken this unit down to be historically and culturally relevant, and help students understand where it's come from, where it may be going in the future, and how they can insert themselves in the end into this, but not just by throwing them to the fire and be like, "Yo, write a rap song, let's go."
Right.
I love how this sequences through to be a significant a whole, for lack of a better term, for what you've got. So I really appreciate it. Just as we wrap this up, can you give us any success stories that you've had, like a particular instance that stands out in your mind as significant toward this?
So I think honestly the biggest thing is just the buzz and the excitement, and it really does in some ways not, not 100% to the definition of a flipped classroom, but it does flip it to a bigger degree than I was thinking it would, because when you give them this concept of hip hop, which a lot of them are very into that, they want to do that. They just like to take the ball and run with it. So there was a buzz and excitement that I don't get every day in my classroom. I know, believe it or not. Um, what's wrong with you, Thomas? Anyway, but it was a very exciting, and there was a buzz even through the school, because I play entry music for my classroom between classes. I'll play entry music every day between classes, and I've got something going. So when we're doing the hip hop, I'll have hip hop beats or hip hop something that's obviously hip hop playing between all of my classes. And I've gotten even kids from the general population that are going down my hallway that just normally just walk straight past my classroom. When we do the hip hop unit and I've got this music pumping, hip hop music between classes, they will stop, they look in my door and say, I need to take this class next year. So even from an enrollment thing and a recruiting, this particular unit is and word of mouth, the word gets out. These students tell their friends, and like the old commercial said, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on and so on. And then the buzz gets out in the whole school. You guys need to check out Music Tech. They're doing a whole 6 weeks on hip hop. You guys, I got to get in that class next year. So it's great for that, for recruiting and getting more kids in your classroom. And remember, like we started out on the first video with this, you got 70 to 80% of your kids in school that are never going to join band, chorus, or orchestra. And you can get those kids in and teach them something about music, traditional music even, through using hip hop as a bridge to get there. So this culturally relevant bridge thing is a big deal. And I use that not only for hip hop unit, I'll do it. We have Hispanic Heritage Month. I'll do Hispanic music. We have Black History Month. We'll do something with that. Jazz Appreciation Month. You can do something with jazz. So there's all kinds of ways to bridge that are culturally relevant and using music and music technology that maybe you not necessarily wouldn't do in your just a regular traditional music classroom like band, chorus, orchestra. Not to say that there aren't teachers that are doing great things with that, but I think it maybe is a little easier in the general music classroom and music technology to make some of those bridges, but it really does form a bridge, and you form a relationship with these students that they feel more authentic and connected to you because you've done their music, and they're willing to go with you maybe places they wouldn't normally go in a traditional music class.
I think that's great, man. And I think for our viewers out there, that if you wanted to take this and say translate it to Hispanic Heritage Month, this framework would work in another set, like breaking it down, history presentations, small bites until you get to that full on project. I think that could really be a good thing.
Absolutely. Educators, they're always talking about, at least we hear it at our school, scaffolding,
Yeah.
scaffolding. And this is a great way to do it. But I'm guilty, as I'm sure all of us are, of wanting to do this. I've got this great lesson plan that is too difficult. You know, it's like
Right.
giving them the rap assignment on week one. That just won't work.
It's just not
So
gonna
really, the scaffolding, breaking it down and giving them a little piece at a time does really help. And I don't do that all the time. I haven't arrived for sure,
oh,
but
I don't know that any of us have.
this is the kind of thing that you can use. It's like, okay, I could back that into and do this a different way with some other topic and do the same type of thing. Yeah.
Well, David, I cannot thank you enough for being here with us and sharing your knowledge on this subject. Really appreciate it. I hope all of our viewers out there find this to be as helpful as I certainly do. Wish you the best of luck for the rest of the school year, man. Thanks again, and
Thank you. My
every,
pleasure.
everybody out there, have a good one. See you soon.